All right, I'm sorry, we are so late. We are now live. We had some massive technical failures. We ditched the camera, and now we're back up laptop camera. So I'm sorry we're late, and that's why it looks a little pixelated. Okay, I'm Justin Lurie. Thank you for your patience. And with me is the great Jay Karahan.
Hi, Justin. How are you?
All right, hold on. I hear some background noise. Hold on 1 second. Let me do that. All right. The phone was the phone was still on. All right, hey, Jay Karahan is here.
How are you, Justin? It's good to be with you.
It is a pleasure to be here. I'm glad you bared with us for maybe 15 minutes of me sweating, trying to figure it out.
But you were cool as a cucumber.
He's a good line. I'm the wrong one. We're the Houston Racquet Club, and we are sponsored tonight by Artemis Partners. They are one of Houston's top marketing and staffing companies. So very, very big thank you to Artemis. Thank you for having us here in the Houston Racquet Club. And it looks even better with the fancy camera, but now we're on a laptop, so whatever. All right, let's talk about Jay. Jay has been on the bench since winning the 2002, correct, election, started in January of 2003. He has administered over 70,000 cases. He's had hundreds and hundreds of jury trials. He sits in a courtroom you never want to be in, the felony courtroom.
That's a misdemeanor.
Misdemeanor, okay. I'm sorry. Well, then it's not as if you're in Jay's courtroom. Maybe, okay, we'll find out. Right? All right. I want to start going way back when. In 19-something, we won't give the year, Jay was at Florida State.
That's right.
That's right. And he had a very cool job where he worked in a sorority. Now, it sounds great, but tragedy did hit that sorority.
That's true.
Do you want to mention what that life-changing event was?
Well, actually, I was transitioning out of being a waiter at Chi the head waiter at Chi Omega, starting in the kitchen and washing pots and dishes and making my way out to the dining room. And it was a great job for 3 years of my 4 years at Florida State. Transitioning out of working there, and I went to sleep one night. It was Saturday night. I woke up Sunday morning to pick up the newspaper on the front steps, the Tallahassee Democrat. And on the front page above the fold was the most horrible news that I had ever read in my entire life. Co-eds murdered in their beds at sorority house. And there was a picture of the two that I knew, and there was one other that was also killed who I didn't know. And there was another woman or a few blocks away that was beaten mercilessly, who I coincidentally also knew, who was a friend of a young lady that I had been dating, and who was a dance major. And she survived, but her career ended because she'd been bludgeoned around the head so badly that she never gained her balance.
Goodness. But
the two sisters died almost instantly, and one was Margaret Bowman and the other one was Lisa Livy. And I had lunch with Margaret 2 days before the killing. Margaret was involved in student government, and she was a very personable young lady, and would actually sit with the waiters when we would have our lunch to share her lunch with us. She didn't have to do that. She was friendly, and I remember having lunch with her Thursday or Friday before the killings, late Saturday night, early Sunday morning.
But that is largely
by Ted Bundy.
What Ted Bundy pushed you in that career path to prevent a tragedy like that from happening again. Is that fair to say? That's
very fair to say. I'd been a music major and actually finished with a music theory and voice degree from Florida State. But I was at a crossroads figuring out whether I wanted to go to law school in music or do something else. And I was so angry and so deeply touched by that experience that I had spoken with a friend of mine who was a law professor at Florida State, who I happened to meet at a musical that I was performing in, South Pacific, and he and I talked about law school after that point. And he encouraged me to go, and I looked at it more and more as time went by and decided, well, maybe I'll go work in a law office. So I decided to go back home after graduation and went to work in the DA's office in Tampa, Florida, the Hillsborough County State Attorney's Office, and loved it so much that I decided to make that a career and then decided to go to law school. And in applying for law schools, South Texas College of Law was one of the schools that accepted me, and I came here to...
You've been in Texas, you've been in Houston since grad school, right?
Since 1979.
I wasn't giving away the year. I was making it easy.
It's okay.
All right. You mentioned music. If anyone's been to Republican events, they have seen Judge Jay sing the national anthem. And I've seen it before on YouTube too. Okay, so which one do you think I've seen on YouTube? What is the best or most brilliant place that you've sung?
The biggest moment I've had as a singer was to be accepted to sing the national anthem at Minute Maid Park for the Astros-Padres game in all of 2003. That was a big deal. That had been on my bucket list.
All right. And he knew all the words.
Absolutely.
there was no errors. So it worked out. That's fantastic. Mm-hmm. All right. So we're going through Jay's life. We had a big turning point. It was tragedy. We have lots of positives. Yeah. A wonderful singer. And then after law school, he was with the DA's office, right?
That's right.
The DA's office.
Actually, during law school.
During law school.
As an intern, and then they hired me when I got my bar license.
And then you had the ultimate compliment, the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Yes, I was appointed assistant U.S. Attorney in 1987. That's right. And I worked it from 87 to 91.
And here's a guy you do not want to go up against. I hope you're never defended. He tried, convicted, jury convicted over 100 serious felony cases,
including 2 FBI top 10 defendants.
Oh my gosh! All right. Oh, I'm glad I've never had nothing more than a parking ticket. I haven't had no speeding tickets.
Justin.
Nothing. Okay. In case there was any doubt out there. Okay. So then you left.
Yes.
And you went to a Fortune 100 company.
Yeah. Went to work at Cooper Industries and was in-house counsel. I was hired as a compliance attorney and as a civil litigator, managing litigation for this company all over the country.
And then after that, we moved to our own private practice.
Correct.
The entrepreneur. What can I call it? A white-collar defense firm.
That's correct.
Is that the right way to say it?
And a mediation.
Mediation. Okay, so we're moving right through the career. I want to give that big background of Judge Jay in case you don't know him too well. All right. Oh, and this is cool. You mentioned South Texas College of Law, your alma mater. They invited you back to be an adjunct professor.
For 10 years, from 1987 to 1996, I served as an adjunct professor teaching criminal trial advocacy to third-year law students who wanted to be trial lawyers in the criminal justice field. And that was really a lot of fun.
Any of them grow up to be the big names out there?
Vanessa Velasquez, one of the very top criminal district judges in Harris County. I'm so proud of Vanessa.
And then where did Vanessa learn her great skills?
Well,
hey, maybe we can give Judge Jay a little bit of the credit. All right. Well, speaking of alma maters, this is my good time to make a big announcement. I went to Michigan, as I talk about every 30 seconds. But we will be traveling back for homecoming this year. U of M invited me to come back and to speak to the students. We don't know. We'll talk about something interesting, but it's a huge compliment to be invited back to Ann Arbor. And so I told my dad, and he said, wow, he was just blown away by it. And I said, hey, come on, it's not that crazy. And he said, I never thought they would allow a C student to come back to campus. Good enough. All right. So, okay, let's talk about being a judge. You've been a judge for, I guess that's 16 years.
It'll be 16 at the end of this year.
At the end of this year. So 15 and a half years. 550 jury trials, right?
Close to 600 now.
Almost 600, over 70,000 cases, as mentioned before. How many probationers does a judge manage over all these years?
Typically, on average, every year, I'm managing roughly 1,000 probationers at any given time. At any given time.
Any given time, right. There must be an incredible filing system.
It is, and but we have the help of the Harris County Probation Department. And we stay in touch online. I meet with probationers in court for compliance checks. And sometimes we have to have a little talk, a little woodshed to get them back on track. And If I can't get them back on track, then they end up with more terms, conditions on their probation or revoked. We try to avoid doing that, but we do stay on top of it. And I'm also one of the 5 judges handling the sober court docket, which is a separate specialty therapeutic docket for second offender DWI.
How many times, what's the record you think, has the same person came back to see you over and over and over again, whether it's for probation or they just happened to see Judge J. Karahan, they got caught again for another misdemeanor? Is there a record?
Out of the 15 and a half years, I can think of about 5 or 6 people who, when they've appeared before me the second and third time, I go, I remember you. I know you. You haven't had enough of this, have you? But it's
but
not that often.
No one's been there like 10 times.
If they've had 10 or 12 touches in the system, they're in felony court by now.
Okay.
On their way to prison.
They're moving up the food chain.
That's correct.
Okay, so I read before about you that your sentencing practices are, I'm going to read this, all right? Designed to motivate offenders to return to the community to be successful and contributing people.
Correct.
Is it working? What do you think?
I think it's working. There are several judges who were models for me. One great model is Ted Poe.
Long time no see for him.
Long time no see. We saw him last night. He was a great felony district court judge. Thought outside the box. Really connected with his probationers in ways to get them to think about their life and to make changes to make sure that they're learning how to be more successful and learning how to make better decisions in their life. Another one is Judge Mary Bacon, who passed away recently. Judge Bacon was a great role model for me. Judge McSpadden is another role model. I set out as a judge to try to come up with different ways to connect with people and to give them ideas about why it's important to do things differently than what got them into court. For instance, in a shoplifting case, my standard question to a shoplifter who's seeking probation is, at the time you were arrested, did you have any money in your pocket or in your purse? And they say no. And I say, great. Do you know what a savings account is? And they go, no, or I've never had one. And I said, good. A condition of your probation is to start a savings account, and you're going to put $50 in your savings account every month for the duration of your probation. And that's where you're going to go to pay for the things that you want or to take care of an emergency. And what really gets me are these parents who are shoplifters who come in who have 2 and 3 kids, and they have no savings. And I remind them that they're one crisis, that one accident or one bad event in their family away from a family economic financial crisis.
That's right.
And they don't, and they just look at me with wide-eyed, going, "Wow, I never really thought of that."
Well, so, what percentage of America has less than $500 in savings? I think it's
70 or 80%.
I think it's somewhere around there, 70, 80%.
Yeah.
It's dangerous.
So I started the savings account condition because under the law, a judge cannot set a condition of probation unless it's reasonably related to the offense that was committed.
Yep.
And when I'm hearing facts about the case where they're stealing, taking something that's a non-food item or non-item, and they don't have money and they're just taking it because they want it, we need to fix that. We need to change that. So they need to understand the delayed gratification concept. Save and pay for it when you want something, or save for the rainy day.
So Ted Poe would be proud.
Absolutely.
Making a unique sentence that fits it. So that's one end of the spectrum.
Yes.
Let's say you have some empathy for the person and you want to help them. But the other side, you're a person, right? You have your own emotions, your thoughts, your feelings. Although a judge needs to be impartial.
Sure.
The judge wants to give everyone a fair shot, but you're still a person inside. So I believe there's a term for that, and we call that judicial temperament.
Yes. So
how does a judge do it? I mean, how do you control yourself when so many other people would say, "Oh, send him to the gallows"? I don't think anymore. What do people say now?
Lock him up and throw away the key.
Yeah. What was that chant that we always said about, not we, but people in general, right? They said about Hillary, lock her up. Or even growing up in New York, you'd always say, send them up the river, up to Sing Sing. So, all right, so the question is, did you learn how to be judicious and even-keeled and the temperament, or is that a natural thing? How does it work?
I think for me, it's been a natural thing because I've had judicial skills most of my life. Growing up in Tampa, when I go back to my high school reunions, and I came back as a judge that one time for one of the reunions.
Did you wear the robes?
No, I did not.
Oh, I would have worn the robes. I
did not. with a long bathing suit underneath.
Yeah. It definitely bring a gavel. This conversation's over.
But many of my friends commented that it was not a surprise to them that I'd become a judge because I was typically the peacemaker or the one that was saying, stop, let's think this through. Let's make a better decision. I think we've had enough of this. Let's go home, and let's not do what you're suggesting because this and this and this could come of that. So I've been doing that for years, and so I have a lot of that. Now, a lot of judicial temperament does come from having tried a lot of cases as a trial lawyer, and you've been exposed to many judges who didn't have judicial temperament. And so you saw how a judge handled your case as a trial judge, and the thought that goes through many of the trial lawyers' minds in those moments are, well, if I were a judge, I would never say that, or I would never do that. I would be more attentive, or I would be less personally involved in the case and let the lawyers try the case.
Larry Nassar up in Michigan. What was that, 2 months ago?
Yeah, and I think Nassar, I'm trying to remember what he said. If you remind me.
Well, the judge said, this is a life sentence. I'm going to throw away the key, or was it something?
Judge should never say that to a person they're sentencing.
What if it's a death penalty? Still not appropriate?
Even in a death penalty case, you can certainly make a speech about the facts of the case that are serious, that are aggravating. And the reason I'm sentencing you to life without parole is that you committed a crime that shocked the conscience of this community, that you have upset and upturned so many lives in what you did. The effect of your crime is so great that you will spend the rest of your life thinking about this behind bars. As the sun rises and sets, you will have that in your mind and about what you did to this family or what you did to this person. And I think that's an appropriate thing to say. But you always tack back to the facts of the case, and you do it in a measured way. You don't do it with a cudgel. You do it with a light touch.
So we always hear the law is blind. Everyone is equal before the law.
True.
In practicality, in Houston, in America, is it true, or is it just an ideal?
It is an ideal. We always strive for blind justice, that is, a judgment based upon the law and the facts that are presented in the case. And what are the facts in a case? The facts are what a jury decides they are, okay? Because each side presents their version of the facts in a disputed case, and so someone has to make that decision. Occasionally, it's the judge who makes a decision about what the facts are when the judge sits as a trier of the fact in a court trial. But most of the time, the jury is making that decision in a trial. So blind justice occurs if you allow both sides to fully present their case, and when the judge applies the law that fits this case, and that it's the best law that's in effect at the time, without the judge making up law. Your best judges, I think, are judges that do not make law from the bench, but apply law that comes from higher courts. That is, in a criminal court, the Court of Criminal Appeals, the Supreme Court of the United States, and if they haven't passed on it, and one of the courts of appeals that are the intermediate courts of appeals in Houston, that's the 1st and the 14th, you apply the law that they have decided is appropriate for those facts.
In other words, a judge should not be making the law. Is that the bottom line?
That's bottom line.
Okay, how many judges do you think make the law? What percentage?
Well, I don't know.
Too many? It's pretty hard to say, right?
It's hard to say because I haven't vetted that. But
depends what state you're in, maybe?
I can tell you in one court where a judge doesn't make the law, and that's my court.
That's your court. That's the only court you can control.
That's correct.
But we hear that all the time. Judges make laws, and they should be interpreting laws, but they go past that interpreting into legislating. That's a problem we've had it's probably for centuries. I don't know that to be true, but I'm probably assuming the more things change, the more they say the same.
Well, there's an example of a judge, a Democrat judge, several years ago, who had only one term in office, who declared the death penalty unconstitutional. This was a trial judge making this declaration, ruling on the record. And trial judges can't rule on that issue. That is an appellate court issue. That is a Supreme Court issue or a Court of Criminal Appeals issue, not that judge's issue.
Vote him out.
Yeah. And he eventually was voted out.
Yeah, see, the system can work.
Yeah.
All right, so here's something that I thought about for a long time. But have you ever lost sleep or had a night before a verdict and you wrestle with it back and forth in your head? Does that ever happen?
As a judge, I've never lost a night of sleep on any case that I've handled because I really felt very confident as a board-certified criminal specialist, as somebody who has been on both sides. I was a defender, I was a prosecutor. As a judge, I felt confident that I'm upon the law, measure that was made with. I felt very comfortable about it.
You can walk away confident.
Walked away confident.
What about when you're
I lost lots of sleep.
You lost lots of sleep.
Yes.
I would imagine the precipice, standing there before the judge, obviously much worse for your clients.
Yes.
You get to go home at night.
Correct.
All right. Funny things ever happen in court?
And they happen almost weekly, especially in a misdemeanor court. Now, you have to understand that there's a great distinction between misdemeanors and felonies. Misdemeanor defendants are people that we're annoyed with or mad at for what they do. Felony defendants are the defendants that we're afraid of. So you can imagine all the knucklehead things that happen in a misdemeanor court. I mean, look at the kinds of cases.
You must have so many examples.
DWI, driving while intoxicated, is probably one of the most, highly filed cases in Harris County. The number one is theft. The second one is DWI. The third one is drugs, and the fourth one is domestic violence. In DWI cases, people say the funniest things on their videos. I've watched people trying to convince the arresting officer before the arrest takes place how sober they are, and have seen them do backflips and actually land on their feet. I've seen them in the middle of field sobriety tests.
Wait, go back. The person who did backflips, were they guilty or not guilty?
He was found guilty.
He was found guilty.
Yeah.
So imagine if he was sober, what he could have done. So in other words, he could do drunken backflips.
Amazingly, it was astonishing to see this guy do it.
Else have you seen?
I've seen defendants
get
so angry at the police officer for arresting them for something they felt like they did, that they started disrobing and taking their clothes off in front of the camera. Astonishing.
Oh, man. Hey, by the way, if you have questions and you logged in, I picked up the tablet. I want to see if we have any questions here. I'll start reading them off. And I know Ashley has questions. So go ahead, Ashley. Go ahead and type it away. Let's see if I can even get this on the tablet while we broadcast.
Sure.
All right. Do you have any more fun judge stories? We want to talk about politics.
I'm happy to talk about judicial politics, how that works on judicial selection, especially after the primary this year.
Well, let's talk about your primary. Were you shocked? Were you surprised when you were being primaried after being a four-term incumbent?
I was not shocked. I expected that the pay-to-play slates would find somebody to run against me. It seemed like they couldn't find anybody for the first part of last year, and then someone emerged in October before the December filing deadline. Came out of nowhere. That was a little surprising because it looked like I was going to make it to the filing deadline without an opponent. But I expected Lurie and to some extent Pollen to go out and seek of the weddings issue.
Do you want to go into detail about the weddings issue?
I'm happy to talk about it.
Your point of view and what their opposition is?
Sure. I made a decision in June of 2015 when the United States declared that same-sex couples could legally be married, that I would continue. Now, I had been officiating weddings since 2003, and since 2003, I've officiated over 600 weddings. After Obergefell was decided, I officiated about 6 same-sex weddings. So it's about 1% of the total. this made them so mad, and I was approached by people saying, you got to stop doing these weddings. And I told them that I'm not going to stop officiating weddings because I enjoy doing them. It is a moonlighting type of thing that a judge is permitted to do. It is permissible under the family code, and family code empowers all judges from Supreme Court down to the Justice of the Peace Courts, and the Justice of the Peace judges don't have a corner on the market of officiating weddings. There's nothing that says that they're supposed to be the only ones to do it, despite what my opponent said during the campaign. And so I did them, and probably about 20 to 30 weddings a year. And that's about it. And that's not a land office business. It's not like, the Justices of the Peace out in Precinct 5. I mean, they're doing hundreds a year. I mean, I 20 to 30 to 40 a year is not a big, and it didn't take away from my primary work in court handling cases. So I decided to continue doing them. And what they wanted us to do, Hotze, Lurie, and Pollan, was to stop doing same-sex weddings. And that would mean turning them away. Well, I checked with the Judicial Conduct Commission about that, and they said, well, you cannot turn them away, because if you did, you'll be discriminating against a protected class.
That's right.
And you're not allowed to do that. And if you did that, you could be removed from office by the Judicial Conduct Commission. So I made the decision to continue doing weddings, and I was told by a couple of colleagues of mine, expect a primary opponent. So I expected it. And so what I thought in July of 2015 was that by the time the primary would come around in 2018, that people would get used to the idea that this was the law of the land.
It's a law. It's been settled.
It's settled law.
Change.
And when I was out on the campaign trail, I talked to many people and told them, my goodness, everyone in my party is supportive of Trump. Most everybody is. And even Donald Trump said that this was a closed issue, that it's on. And Pastor Jessup out of Dallas, First Baptist of Dallas, said the same thing. So I figured in 3 years, people would say, you know what, it's the law. We need to move on to other important issues, like Affordable Care Act and all these other issues that are pressing, the immigration reform question, all these other issues. But you know what?
Or at least keep a sitting judge who has a history of winning, who's enforcing the law, who's following the law, and don't put up a candidate who may or may not win in November.
Yes.
And that's one of the biggest problems.
So what happened, of course, the outcome in my primary was really stunning. But looking back on it now, it's not so stunning, because we had 75 judicial races on, and the pay-to-play slates bet correctly that people don't really care about drilling down into the candidates and learning about the candidates. They just want that card that they can tear off by perforation from their mail pieces and walk into the polls very easily during the half hour they have on the way to work in the morning, the half hour during the lunch, or the half hour at the stop on the way home after work. Just pop into the polls and vote. If they didn't have that card, they would be in there for a good half an hour, 45 minutes or longer doing their voting. So the slates bet correctly, and the opponent won. And I had so many people that were posted at the polls. I had, at the 25 top polls, I had somebody at each poll, and everyone told me that and they were all wearing Judge J. Karahan t-shirts, that all the people went by them saying, I don't need to talk to you. I have my card.
I have my piece of paper.
I'm going to vote for that. And and folks,
I've seen it before too.
And folks, yes, we did. And folks at my church, I go to St. Martin's. It's the largest Episcopal parish in the country. There were folks at my church coming up to me saying, "Hey, what happened in your race? I voted for you, and I got my card in the mail from the link letter. And I voted for you. And I voted for everybody on that card." And I said, "Billy, Bob, or Joan, or whatever, you voted for my opponent if you voted for everybody in that tear-off ballot, because they didn't endorse me. They endorsed the guy that paid for the endorsement." So, and they were all stunned. And so that's what happened in this race. And unfortunately, people that had known me, like for instance, Gary Pollan had supported me in the past. And Gary Pollan just totally turned on me in this race on this one issue. And I really believe that Mr. Pollan has lost his way.
I'm opposed to slates, period. if the slates lose any kind of their value out there in the market.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had the runoff election just a couple weeks ago, where the slates endorsed the candidate who didn't win.
Mm-hmm.
And so hopefully that diminishes their value. But then again, that's for the big headline race. But like you said, we have the largest ballot in the country.
Yes,
right?
it is.
It's the largest ballot.
It was over 20 pages. Over 20 pages.
20 pages
on the computer.
It's all right. Hey, if you do have questions, and I finally got Facebook to work on the tablet, so sorry for that long delay there. Please do send something over there, and I think I could see it from here. But let's talk about your opponent. Generally speaking, he went negative right up front. He had to make a name. He had to get himself out there, and negative. Yes, you're that. Trying to reconnect. All right, we reconnect.
At the first candidate forum, which was the Spring Cypress Tea Party candidate forum, which was on November the 11th, 2017, my wife and I were there, and my wife videotaped his remarks, and he went immediately negative before I even had an opportunity to say anything. And I spoke after he did, and I was just astonished that he said the kind of things that he said. I was hoping that he would speak about his bona fides, his qualifications, but he did not really speak about those. He spoke about negatives and made negative comments about me, about the weddings, about my campaign financing that I had enjoyed over 15 years of support from lawyers, doctors, professionals, people like that, and he put a big number out there saying this judge shouldn't have to raise this kind of money, to become a judge. Well, I did, because I don't use play slates. I do it the old-fashioned way. I go out and I gumshoe it, and I go out and meet people, and that costs money, as you well know.
It takes a lot of time, a lot of money, and then have the signs. Just get your message out there. Absolutely true.
Radio ads, billboards. I've done signs. I go to the events, and you sponsor events for groups that you want to support you.
That's right.
Those sponsorships cost money.
Last night, I believe you were a silver sponsor. Right?
I was.
For the LRC, for their annual dinner, where Jay was awarded. What was the proper name?
It was a special service award.
Special service. Yeah. Recognition for the years, let's call it years of friendship. Is that fair?
And service as a judge to the county.
So it was a well-deserved award. He gave a really nice speech. And I feel like there might be one or two things you want to talk about from last night you want to put out there today. Anything that comes to mind?
Well, what we need to do, we need to really take a good hard look at how we're selecting our judges. And we want to get the best and brightest from the lawyers who practice in Harris County to sit on these benches and preside over these courts. I think we, as a body politic and as Republicans, need to do a better job. And what I'm proposing is that we need to vet who is interested in being a judge up front, grade them, and then publish the grades from some group, whether it's C Club or the Houston Realty Business Coalition or Spring Branch Republicans. They should combine, get the best lawyers in probate, criminal, civil, family, and juvenile.
What would they ask them?
And they would basically drill down into the proposed candidates' life and times and profession and professional experiences, and find out if this person is really the real deal, a really good, accomplished, experienced person, respected by all the lawyers that they work with and by the judges. And if this vetting process is done right, and this would cost money, all right, but if this vetting process is done right and these grades are from people who are respected lawyers in Harris County, I think that that goes out and that's publicized. If that candidate files, some of these candidates are going to think twice before they file when they see the grade next to them. So I think we need to do that up front before they even file, and it needs to be done early. And if somebody did not meet with this grading group, then they'll get an automatic F grade no matter how good they are if they file later. So that's my opinion. I think we also need to consider as a state law requiring, especially in large cities like Houston, board certification in specialties for each of these courts, because I think to be a board certified specialist should be a minimum qualification to be a criminal judge or family judge or civil trial judge. I strongly believe that.
All right, if you have any other questions, do post it here. We want to hear it. All right, Che, what's next for you? You finish up in January, right?
Finishing up December 31st. I will wake up on New Year's Day, not a full-time judge, but I will always have the title judge and be a retired judge.
Retired judge.
I will be able to come back as a visiting judge if other sitting judges call me to sit for them when they're ill or vacationing or I'm going to practice and approach several prominent firms to join of counsel, partnerships, etc.
Is that appealing for you?
It is appealing in lots of ways, but I haven't made up my mind yet.
Yeah.
But what I do intend to do is I'm going to take a sabbatical. I've never had 2 months off or 3 months off. Just travel to go places that I want to go. I mean, the last time I had 2 months off, Justin, was between my junior and senior year of high school.
Which is obviously only about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's the immediate plan, and then I'll decide what to do when I come back.
I mean, where I got this shirt was from our post-election vacation down in the Caribbean. So I fully get behind that. I think it's a great idea. Anything else you want to talk about? The mic is yours, Jay.
Well, it's been a joy to serve Harris County as a judge in this wonderful criminal court. I've had a wonderful staff through the years. My coordinator, Donna Ramos, has been fantastic. I've had great clerks. I've got a great probation officer, Larry Uresti, who really rides herd over our probationers. I love my sober court staff. They really make it a joy to come to court. The sober court thing is a relatively new thing that we've been doing in Harris County. It's 10 years old. I was one of the pilot judges to start sober court. That stands for Saving Ourselves by Education and Rehabilitation. We have second offender DWIs in that program. I've had wonderful success stories. It's a joy to do that program. So I still wake up every day jazzed about coming to court and doing my work. And I think everyone should feel that way about their job. But as you well know, and you've studied employment numbers, maybe 20% of the folks who are working in America are jazzed about their work. But I have been, and I hope to continue to do some more of that.
Well, a better economy, we'll make that happen.
Yeah.
Anything you want to plug, places you'll be, appearances, TV shows, stand-up, anything.
Nothing.
All right.
Then I'll be at your next karaoke.
Yeah, he'll be at the next karaoke. I'm not singing out to this guy, I'll tell you that. And I will plug again, I'll be in Ann Arbor, October 5th, speaking to U of M undergrads.
Will Florida State and U of M meet?
We played you all 2 years ago in the bowl game, and we lost by 1.
I'm very sorry to hear that.
I was not happy. I had
That's all you're going to get.
But I am sorry for the technical issues. We had this thing all jazzed up. We had beautiful cameras and everything, and then the internet not that great, and then the cameras not that great. But we spent so long getting ready, and then once you hit start, it all
it went by fast.
It all fell apart. So I guess it's the way to go. So if you're still here with us, if you're still listening, thank you. And I'm sorry for the technical stuff. All right, we'll see you next week. We're having Jeremy Wallace, most likely, from the Houston Chronicle, who is covering lots and lots of races. We want to hear his perspective. All right, good night, good luck, thank you. All right, we'll turn it off.